So, the volume of a solid is the number of cubic units contained in its interior. Basically, it's how much stuff you can fit in a 3D figure. Okay, so volume of a prism, the formula. Now remember, you're going to get this formula on the quiz and test, but you have to understand what it means. So volume of a prism is capital B times H. Capital B is the area of the base. So it can be different depending on what kind of prism you have. If you have a triangular prism, you got to find the area of the triangle. If you have a rectangular prism, you got to find the area of the rectangle. If you have a hexagonal prism, you got to find the area of the hexagon. We don't focus so much on this because you don't know how to really do this. If I do give you a picture like this, I'll just give you the area of the base already. And then H is the height of the prism. Note that the height doesn't always have to be straight up and down. I can give you a triangular prism that looks like this, sideways. This is still the height. Okay, the height is from base to base. So it doesn't always have to be straight up and down like that. So on your quiz, you're going to get capital B times H as the formula. Now we're going to do cylinder today because cylinders and prisms are related. If I think of my volume formula as capital B times H, where B is the area of the base, what's the base of a cylinder? What's the base? A circle. How do you find the area of a circle? Pi r squared. So our formula becomes pi r squared H for a cylinder. It never changes for a cylinder. It changes for a prism depending on the base. So H is still the height of the cylinder. R is the what? Radius. So pi r squared H. So those are the two formulas. They'll be on the board throughout the week. They'll be on the sheet of paper that you'll get for your quiz and your test. Okay, but you got to understand what capital B means. So, all we're going to do, we're going to go through every kind of problem I think you'll see. And we're going to just try and find the volume. So for the first one, I find the volume of the right triangular prism. So volume is area of the base times the height of the prism. What shape is the base, Jack? A triangle. How do I find the area of this triangle? Nope. How do I find, what's the area formula for a triangle? Base times height divided by 2 or times 0.5. So our volume is going to be 1 times 3 divided by 2. The height of the triangular prism there is 2 feet. Do you see how this height is not up and down? So think of height as the distance between the two bases. So, what's 1 times 3 divided by 2? 1.5? Times 2. What's 1.5 times 2? So the volume here is 3. And then our units are always cubed. So 3 cubic feet. So 3 feet cubed. So area, your units were squared. Volume, they're cubed. The most people get this one wrong because they forget to divide by 2. You will need a calculator for the next 2 weeks. So make sure you grab one every day or you have one. If you bring your own. A lot of it's just taking the numbers, plugging it into the formula, and multiplying. I actually really like this chapter. It's not too hard. Now I have a cylinder. It says find the exact volume of the right cylinder. We used the word exact before. What does exact mean? Yeah, leave in the pi. Your answer should be something pi at the end. Remember we did that in Unit 8 with circles? So the volume here is pi r squared h. Yes, Jack? What's the radius? So pi 5 squared, the height is 6. So you don't necessarily have to write the formula down every time, but I want to see this one. I want to see that what you put in there. Especially if you get the radius and the height confused. It happens. Somebody said it. What's 5 squared times 6? 150 pi, because we're leaving the exact answer. And then our units would be meters cubed. I think on the quiz and the test, I don't care if you do exact or not. If you want to give me the decimal, you can give me the decimal. I think I'm over it at this point. You guys have done these problems before in, I think, middle school. Yes? Have you seen volume before? Yes. Example 3, you haven't. Example 3 is like a 10th grade question. The volume of the right cylinder is shown to be 1,253 cubic centimeters. Find x to the nearest hundred. In our formula, what's x? What vocab word? The radius. I got to solve for radius. So we know our volume formula is pi r squared h. I got to solve for r. I got to work backwards. So I'm not always just going to give you numbers and you plug it in. You got to do some harder problems. So 1,253 equals pi r squared times 10. Because the height is 10. How do you want to solve for r? What do you want to do first? Divide by 10? Oops. That's 10. Divide by 10. 1,253 divided by 10. 125.3 equals pi r squared. Now what should I do? Yeah, divide by pi. 39.88. And then my last step is to square root. Round to the nearest hundredth. 6.32. And your units here are going to be centimeters. Okay, so you will see all three of these problems on your quiz next week. So far, so good? Not bad? Okay, what happens if the prism or the cylinder is not a right prism or a right cylinder, meaning it's not straight up and down? There are ones that aren't straight up and down, like this guy. This is called an oblique prism. Have you ever seen like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, where it's like slanted? That's an oblique cylinder. But Cavalieri said, basically, if you have three solids that all have the same height and the same cross-sectional, then all three of them will have the same volume. So if I take a stack of pennies, which I have, that's a cylinder. A stack of pennies, if I put it together, that's a cylinder. If I slant it this way, won't it still have the same amount of stuff in it as if it was straight? Yeah, so that's Cavalier's principle in a nutshell. So the volumes are the same. So the same volume. The only thing you still have to look out for is you still need the height perpendicular to a base. So we don't want the slanted height. So example 4, I need everybody's attention, is the hardest problem. We got to go back to the beginning of the semester to help us with this problem. So I'm finding the volume of this cylinder. So it's pi r squared h. What's the radius? The radius is 6. 18, though, is not the height. 18 is what we call the slant height. And that symbol is like a fancy L, cursive L. We're going to get into the slant height tomorrow a lot when we do pyramids. But this is the slant height. We don't want that. We have to have the height like this guy. So we got to find h here. If I were to redraw this triangle, this is what it looks like. 30, 60, 90, for those of you who remember. If you remember your special right triangles, you can do special right triangles. But the majority of you won't. And it won't always be 60 degrees. So how can I solve for h? Well, think back to the beginning of the semester. What? You kind of had it. Can I use SOHCAHTOA? No, we already know the angle measure. So let's set up SOHCAHTOA. H is what side with the 60 degrees? Oh, the opposite. What's 18? So I'm going to use sine. So I would say the sine of 60 degrees equals h over 18. That's why this problem is the hardest problem, because you have to find the height. So what mode should my calculator be in?
Degree.
Gotta double check, make sure it's in degree mode. Hit the mode button. Just go down and over and press enter. Okay, so 18, if I cross multiply, I get h is 18 times the sine of 60. $15.59. So instead of finding the exact volume, we're just going to find the volume of this cylinder. So I have the radius. Sorry, this is messy. And I have the height. This problem's on your quiz. Now you just plug it in. Pi 6 squared times 15.59. Because I'm not finding exact, I can just plug that whole thing in the calculator. Pi 6 squared 15.59. So 1,763.19 millimeters cubed. Thank you. So, oops. If they don't give you the exact height up and down, or making a right angle with the base, you might have to do some SOHCAHTOA. Or you could do Pythagorean theorem if they give you this bottom piece. Okay. There's only one of these on the quiz. But this definitely shows up again tomorrow when we do pyramids and cones too. Questions? 5A is by far the easiest one you'll see. It's a right rectangular prism. So the volume here is the area of the base times the height. Does it really matter which sides are considered the base here? Technically, it's this side, the 5x4, and this side. Those are the only two sides that look alike. And only them look alike. Because these all four look alike. So, volume here is going to be 5 times 4 times 11. But, think about multiplication. 5 times 4 times 11. isn't that the same as 11 times 5 times 4? So it doesn't really matter when you do a rectangular prism which number you put in the base and which one's the height. This is the only one where you just multiply all three numbers, call it a day. So 220 cubic meters. So this is the only one it does not matter. I still want you to see the three numbers being multiplied. B, let's go ahead, instead of exact, find the volume. Let's use a decimal. So pi 6 squared times 9. $1,017.88 cubic feet. I don't know what I'm doing there. That one's pretty easy too. But all these show up. So there's some of them that are easier than others. All these show up on your quiz. Okay, C is kind of hard to see. It's an oblique prism. So area of the base times the height. What's the base? What shape? Isn't that a triangular base? Isn't this a triangle right here? If I were to redraw it, it looks like this. So how do you find the area of that triangle? So 9 times 5 divided by 2. The height of this oblique prism is 8. Because it's the 90-degree angle one. So 8 is still the height. So we're good. We don't have to do SOHCAHTOA or anything else. 9 times 5 divided by 2 is 22.5. Times 8. $180. Questions? So this one and the other triangle were the same. One was just oblique, one was right. Okay, last one. The volume of the right cylinder is 200 pi. Find the value of x. What vocab word is x? X is the diameter. So I can find the radius and then do what? How do radius and diameter relate? By, yes, times by 2. Now the only difference, do you see how in this one we have pi on both sides? Yeah, so this one's different than the one on the other side. Next, one problem. The one on this side is different than the other one. Pi is included in the volume, so you can just cancel pi. So you get 200. Oh, we know the height. It's 8. So 8r squared. It's 25. The answer is not 5. The radius is 5, so what's x? 10, because we got to double it. Questions?